Imagine it's a Friday evening, the workday is over, and your phone lights up with a notification. It's a text from a friend inviting you to a gathering, a party, or maybe just a busy dinner in a crowded restaurant. For most people, this is a moment of excitement, but for you, a subtle, heavy weight settles in your chest. You find yourself staring at the screen, wondering how much energy it would take to put on your shoes, drive through traffic, and sit through hours of small talk. Then, you make a choice. You politely decline, you put your phone on silent, brew a cup of tea, and sit in the silence of your living room. In that moment, a wave of profound relief washes over you. This isn't the relief of someone who is afraid, it's the relief of someone who has finally come home to themselves. In today's culture, we are often told that being alone is a problem to be solved. We are conditioned to believe that the person sitting alone in a cafe must be lonely, that the person who spends their weekends without plans must be struggling, and that a life well lived is a life filled with constant external connection. We label the preference for solitude as being antisocial, standoffish, or even broken. But today, we're going to look at this through a different lens. We'll explore the psychology of people who genuinely prefer being alone. This isn't about social anxiety, where you want to be with others but are too afraid to try. This isn't about clinical depression, where you isolate yourself because the world feels too heavy to face. This is about a healthy, conscious, and even sophisticated psychological orientation known as high autonomy and a low need for social stimulation. If you are one of these people who genuinely prefer being alone, you likely have a very clear awareness of your internal battery. For extroverts, being around a crowd is like plugging into a charger. The noise, the laughter, and the constant back and forth of conversation give them a rush of dopamine. They leave a party feeling energized and alive. But for you, the process is reversed. Socializing is not a way to gain energy, it is an expensive transaction where you spend it. From the moment you enter a social space, a timer starts to count down. You are aware of every micro-expression you have to manage, every polite nod you have to give, and every response you have to come up with. To the world, you might look like you are participating effortlessly, but internally, you are managing a complex set of social expectations. Psychologists call this social masking or social performance. When you're in public, you're often playing a character. It's not that you're being fake or dishonest, it's simply that you're fulfilling the social contract required to keep things smooth. You smile when you're supposed to smile, you ask the appropriate questions, you laugh at jokes that are only mildly funny. For many, this performance is second nature. But for those who genuinely prefer being alone, this mask can feel heavy. It creates a psychological strain because there is a gap between who you are in the silence of your own home and who you feel you have to be in the presence of others. The moment you step through your front door and lock it behind you, that mask drops. The relief you feel comes from no longer having to perform for an audience. This brings us to one of the most common traits of people who seek solitude, a very low tolerance for inauthenticity. If you prefer being alone, you likely find small talk to be one of the most draining activities on earth. Conversations about the weather, the latest celebrity gossip, or the shallow pleasantries shared in an elevator feel like a waste of your energy. Why? Because they are scripted. They are hollow rituals where neither person is truly saying what they think or meaning what they say. For a person who values the depth of their internal world, these interactions feel like static noise. They crave genuine connection or absolute silence, but they have very little patience for the gray area in between. You might have experienced the frustration of the performative social ritual. Someone asks, "How are you?" And you know they don't actually want to hear about your struggles or your triumphs. They want you to say, "I'm good, thanks, how are you?" It's a loop that goes nowhere for the solitude seeker. This feels like an invisible wall preventing real intimacy. Because you have spent so much time alone, you have become highly attuned to your own truth. You are comfortable with your own thoughts, even the uncomfortable ones. When you are forced back into a world where everyone is pretending to be happy or pretending to be busy, the contrast is jarring. You would rather be alone with your own reality than be in a crowded room surrounded by 1,000 small lies. This is also why your social circle is likely very small but incredibly deep. You don't collect acquaintances, you don't see social interaction as a game of numbers. Instead, you view each interaction as a major investment of your time and energy. If you are going to leave the comfort of your sanctuary, the person you are meeting has to be worth the energy. You seek people who don't require you to wear the mask, people you can be comfortable in silence with, rather than awkward for you. The ultimate luxury is a relationship where you can be alone together. In a world that is constantly screaming for your attention, choosing to stay home is an act of radical energy conservation. You are not missing out on life. You are protecting the life you have. You understand that your time is a finite resource, and you have decided to spend it on things that actually matter to you, rather than on the social theater of the world. You are not antisocial, you are selectively social. You have recognized that most of the noise in the world is just that noise, and you have found that the only way to hear your own voice is to turn the volume of the world down. Beyond the drain of social energy, there is another psychological driver for those who prefer to be alone, the deep-seated need for environmental control. When you leave your home, you surrender your autonomy. You cannot control who you will encounter, how loud the music will be, or how long a conversation. You are at the mercy of the unpredictability of the outside world. For someone with a highly sensitive nervous system, this unpredictability feels like a constant low-level threat. But inside your own space, you are the architect of your reality. You control the lighting, the temperature, the smells, and most importantly, the silence. This is not about being a control freak. It is about creating a sensory environment that allows your brain to finally stop scanning for danger and start focusing on creation and reflection. There is also the matter of privacy, which is often misunderstood in our modern hyper-connected world. We live in a culture that demands visibility. If you don't document your experiences on social media, did they even happen? If no one saw you achieve something, does it still count? To the person who genuinely prefers being alone, the answer is a resounding yes. You possess a psychological trait that is becoming increasingly rare, the ability to enjoy an experience without needing a witness. You find fulfillment in the activity itself, not in the social approval that follows it. You can read a book, finish a project, or go for a walk in the woods and feel completely satisfied simply because you were there. Your life doesn't require external validation to be meaningful. This leads us to the most important distinction of all, the difference between being alone and being lonely. Society often confuses the two, but they are worlds apart. Loneliness is a state of lack. It is the painful feeling of wanting connection and not finding it. Solitude, however, is a state of abundance. It is the choice to be with oneself because that company is nourishing. When you prefer to be alone, you aren't running away from people because you dislike them. You are running toward yourself because you like who you are when no one is watching. You have built a rich, vibrant inner world that is far more interesting than the surface-level noise of the crowd. So if you're someone who feels a sense of peace when a plan gets canceled, if you're someone who finds the most clarity in the early hours of the morning when the world is still asleep, or if you're someone who needs days of silence to recover from a single afternoon of socializing, know this: you are not broken. You are not a mystery to be solved or a problem to be fixed. You are simply someone who has mastered the art of self-sufficiency. In a world that is constantly trying to make you someone else, your preference for solitude is your greatest act of defiance. It is your way of saying that you are enough exactly as you are, without the need for an audience. If you found peace in this video and felt understood, perhaps you've just found your tribe. Please give this video a like. It tells the algorithm that this message is important and helps us reach others who might be sitting alone right now, wondering if they're enough. To continue exploring the quiet corners of the human mind with us, hit the subscribe button and join the Simple Psych Lab family. We are a community of thinkers, observers, and seekers who believe that understanding yourself is the greatest journey of all. Are you someone who genuinely prefers being alone? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. Until next time, stay curious and be kind to your mind.